Here's a segment from a recent Gun Talk radio episode. You can listen to all the Gun Talk radio podcasts however you tune in, or check out guntalk.com for more. We got a lot of things obviously lined up today, but it occurred to me, and I hope you will bear with me on this. There are some things I want to talk about. I think some things need to be talked about that a lot of people miss. And when I say a lot of people, I'm talking about a lot of people on the gun rights side of things. I've used the analogy before that a lot of times, not just some, but a lot of the folks on our side of this issue don't really understand the fight that's going on. I've used the analogy of they show up at a baseball field wearing a helmet and pads and cleats, and they wonder why they're losing. Because they don't understand the rules, they don't understand the game that's being played. And a lot of times they don't even understand when they lose. So what's really going on here? I want to talk about that. I think there's a largely unseen battleground in the gun control and gun rights war. It's a battleground that is marked by the long game on the part of the gun control people, the gun ban forces. Quick perspective here. I have been doing this for 50 years, a half a century. I started writing about gun rights and gun control in actually more than 50 years now that I think about it. Holy cow. In 68, 69. I've seen a lot of changes. I've seen a lot of things. But one of the things you get from this is a perspective of, okay, what's really going on? Don't focus on the bright, shiny thing that's being held out there. And we keep reacting to the latest gun ban proposal, the latest restriction proposal, the latest whatever it is they're throwing out there. And yes, I understand we have to react to those to some extent. But we also have to pay attention to what's happening. What is all this a part of? Let me start off by saying it's a great quote from, and I love him or hate him, Saul Alinsky. He wrote, "He who controls the language controls the masses." In a little bit different way, George Orwell, the pen name of Eric Arthur Blair, in, of course, his famous novel 1984, talked about newspeak, changing the language in order to control what people think. Another word for that is programming. Simply that, programming. You know, it's always been true that if you frighten people, if you frighten the public enough, you can get them to accept restrictions. Case in point, the 9/11 attacks gave us the Patriot Act. Horrible law, horrible. And we willingly gave up rights. We willingly rushed to give the government control, secret control, spying on American control, because we were frightened. If you can frighten people, you can get them to give up almost anything in the hopes of getting safety. Of course, you don't deliver safety. It's just the ruse, if you will. You know, think about what the gun ban industry has done to language. They've given us terms like, Saturday night special. And not just a handgun. No, handgun's not scary enough. Saturday night special, that's the thing that's used to kill people on Saturday nights. It's a small, easily concealable, cheap gun. Except that when you go back 30, 40 years, when they had laws to ban Saturday night specials, weirdly enough, they always talked about the small, easily concealable, cheap guns that had no sporting use, except that when you looked at the definitions, it would include basically all handguns, including like a Colt Ned Buttline Special with a 14-inch barrel that nobody could conceal. Didn't matter. It was just a scary name to frighten the public. Junk guns was trotted out for a little while. It didn't last very long, but they tried junk guns. But junk didn't sound really scary. And then, of course, the big winner in the whole thing was assault weapon. We will frighten people because it's an assault weapon. Weapon of war, if you will. It's not just a semi-automatic Rifle. No. Assault weapon. And it's perfect when it has no definition at all. An assault weapon, of course, is a term that doesn't have a definition. And that way it can be anything and everything. And when we said this 20 years ago, we said, well, this is an infinitely expandable term that could include anything. And people say, oh, no. Really? And now we see the term assault weapon being applied not just to the AR-15s or AK-47s, but to all semi-automatic rifles, and then to semi-automatic shotguns, and then now to semi-automatic handguns, and even, depending on who's writing the law, to pump action and lever action firearms. Again, assault weapon doesn't mean anything, so it can mean everything. That's the beauty of the whole thing. If you're a gun banner, so assault weapon's kind of the granddaddy and the big winner in the scary gun terms. And then, of course, you throw in ghost gun, because everybody's afraid of a ghost. All it means is a privately made gun, which has been legal in this country since before the U.S. existed. Interesting. Ghost gun, scary names. Also, in terms of controlling the language, and remember, this is all about controlling the language, and this is the long game. You change people's perspectives. You change people's understandings. You change what they believe to be true. You control them. Crime, the term crime becomes gun violence or gun crime. It's not just crime, it's gun crime, or now gun violence, because people are generally opposed to violence, so we'll link gun to violence. It has become so pervasive that the media doesn't even think about it. They just use this political term without even understanding they're using a political term. Today we're going to be talking about gun violence. Gun violence is gun violence, 1,000 times a day. Little bit by little bit, the public changes its views. Violence is bad, gun violence is bad, guns are bad. Again, it's the long game. All right? Gun control. This is the one that they've really been successful at this, and this was smart. I give them that. They no longer say gun control. They're not gun control groups, right? They're gun safety groups. They're for safety. Who wouldn't be for safety? You're against violence and you're for safety. Now, they don't teach gun safety. They don't promote gun safety. Their idea is gun bans is safety. And then, of course, in this whole process, you say, well, not enough people are afraid of mass shootings because they don't really happen that often. According to the FBI, something on the order of 20 times a year, we get mass shootings. Well, that's not nearly enough to frighten people with. We have to get those numbers up, or as they say, those are rookie numbers. How do we get the numbers up for mass shootings? Well, we'll just redefine what a mass shooting is. We will create a phony group, the Gun Violence Archive, and we'll come up with our own definitions of what a mass shooting is, and make sure that it's defined in such a way that now we go from 20 to hundreds and hundreds a year. And then we'll promote that to a very willing media, which quotes the Gun Violence Archive numbers. It's all phony, of course. It's all designed to frighten people. Oh, my God, there are hundreds of mass shootings in the country. No, they're not. Don't be stupid. Here's a quote for you. This goes all the way back to 1994. Bill Clinton, yeah, that guy. Bill Clinton on MTV says, a lot of people say there's too much freedom. When personal freedom's being abused, you have to move to limit it. When personal freedom's being abused, rather than take care of the abuse, you have to move to limit it. That's what we did in the announcement I made last week on public housing projects. Housing projects, and about how we're going to have weapon sweeps and more things like this to try to make people safer in their communities. Weapon sweeps, Bill Clinton, that's warrantless searches. We have to move to limit people's freedoms. The The gun ban goal here is to get the public and even gun owners to accept the premise that there are good guns and bad guns. They'll throw up these trial balloons of scary names, of categories of guns, and trying to get the public to accept that those guns, quote, have no place in society. Weapons of war being the catchphrase of the day. Well, if you can get people to accept that there are good guns and bad guns, well, you're well on your way to getting them to accept the idea that we got to get rid of the bad guns, right? And once again, very much like the assault weapon term, that's an infinitely adjustable or expandable term. Tell you what, let me take a quick break here because I want to talk a little bit more about this whole idea of gun safety, common sense gun control, compromise. It goes on and on, but look, this is the hidden battlefield. And when I come back, I'm going to have so now what? What's in it for you? What do you do with this? I have some thoughts on that and how you become a more effective warrior in the battle for gun rights. Be right back. We're talking about the great unseen battle, the battleground for gun rights, and even more than that, it's a cultural battle. Unfortunately, I think an awful lot of folks on our side get blinded by whatever the thing is that we're having to fight right now. When the invaders are coming over the wall, you have to attack them at the wall, but not understanding that there's a larger battle taking place here. And I'm trying to explain a little bit about that. The control of the language is huge. When we buy into the terms gun crime, we lose. When we buy into the idea of gun violence, we lose. And I'll tell you where else we lose. And a lot of folks on the gun rights side of things buy into this. Additional penalties for the use of a gun in a crime. Well, yeah, we should sentence them, we should enforce the laws that are on the books. No, actually, some of the laws should be repealed. There should be no such thing as an additional penalty for the use of a gun in a crime. All that is demonizing firearms. Why should a murder be worse if it's done with a gun? Why should a rape be worse if it's done with a gun? Why should anything be worse if it's done with one particular tool and not another particular tool? We are just damn fools if we buy into that. And we play into their hands. When crime becomes gun crime, why do we even use those terms? That's just crazy. The whole idea is programming the public against guns. Look, the gun ban industry tests words and phrases. It even published a guide to Democratic politicians telling them not to use the words gun control any longer. They even changed their names. The National Council to Control Handguns changed its name to become Handgun Control Incorporated. Well, they found out handgun control didn't work any better, so they changed their name to the Brady Campaign. Yeah, the Brady Campaign used to be HCI, Handgun Control Incorporated. The National Coalition to Ban Handguns. That didn't work out so well for them, so they switched, and the leader then went and formed the Violence Policy Center, a little group that cranks out papers supporting gun bans. They're frequently quoted or referred to by the media. Of course, the whole idea of the gun ban industry is to equate gun safety with gun ban and gun control. And then they use phrases like common sense gun control. That is not a phrase that just popped up out of nowhere. It was tested. The whole idea is that if you use the phrase common sense gun control, it dismisses anyone who opposes you. Because it says if you don't agree with these restrictions on your freedoms, you clearly have no common sense. Compromise. Don't you love that one? We're just going to compromise on this one. What does compromise mean to the gun banners? It means that they get some of what they want, we lose some of what they want, and the compromise is that they don't get rid of all the guns at this time. Not yet. They'll compromise by only taking some of them now. That's not a compromise. Well, case in point, going back to that same Bill Clinton quote when he was on MTV in 1994, Bill Clinton says this, I think we should ban several kinds of semi-automatic assault weapons. This is 1994. I think we should pass the ban on handgun possession by minors unless they're with an adult supervisor and using it for approved sporting purposes. I think we should go further in trying to regulate what these gun dealers do with these guns, because they will sometimes, they put in circulation in ways we know they're going to wind up in the hands of criminals. And then here's the payoff, quote, all these things we're moving to do now, will it solve all the problems? No, it won't. It is a step in the right direction. Yeah, it's always a step in the right direction. Really, what's the direction leading toward? Total gun ban. Simple. Total. Hey, what do? We need to call them out on it. Media, politicians, or even gun people. Call them out every time they twist the language around. Don't let them get away with it. Don't buy into it. Okay? There's something else they're doing here, and it's an old tactic that's being used now on the gun side. And that is basically saying that if you don't support gun control, you are a racist. And now they're flipping it around a different way. Well, you know, the Second Amendment is a white supremacist law. Yeah, no, I know you think I'm making this up. I'm not. This is the latest tactic. And this has been used for years and years, and it didn't really matter what the subject was, what the thing you were debating, the thing you were discussing. A lot of times on the left, what they would just simply say is, well, that's a racist view. At that point, you had to stop talking about the issue, whatever it was. Could be a zoning thing, could be whatever it was. And all of a sudden, you're defending yourself against this charge of racism. It's a brilliant tactic to put you on the defense. And if you start to defend yourself on that, you lose. Boom, done. You're no longer talking about the issue anymore. And you know, what do they always say? You can't prove a negative. You can't prove I'm not a racist. So understand that that's part of what's going on now. Yeah, supporting the Second Amendment is now characterized as supporting white supremacy. There's a lot more going on here. The NRA did, in 2016, they put $30 million into the election, mostly to Republicans. Understand that destroying the NRA is partly about damaging or destroying the Republican Party. Red flag laws can and have been used against people who speak out either vocally or online with unpopular views. Your action items, real quick. Read more. Be better informed. Reject much of what social media tells you. Question everything from all sides. Stop saying stupid stuff like boat accident, cold dead hands, stack up. Understand the fight isn't what you think it is. Don't take the bait. They aren't after your rifle. They're after you. You know, the world belongs to those who show up. We all have to educate ourselves, stand up, speak up, show up. Simple as that. We can win in the courts, but actually in the long run, if we don't win public opinion, we lose it all. Simple as that.